Okay. Hello, how are you?
Hello.
Good. Okay, do you both have your questions?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I will read the questions and then Tran, you read your answer. And then when she is done, Tran, you read your answer, okay? Okay, chapter 7, The House by the Sea. Literal questions. What was the name of Uncle Henrik's boat and where did he get the name?
The name of Uncle Henrik's boat is Inboard. Uncle Henrik named the boat in honor of Annemarie's mother.
Okay, the word you'd say in honor. You don't have to pronounce the H. In that word, you just say honor, okay? Okay. Bautron?
His name was the Innoble. He named it in honor of Annemarie mom.
Number 2. What did Anne-Marie do with Ellen's necklace?
She hid it in a safe place.
Good. Okay, Bautron.
Annemarie hid it in a safe place and she will return it to Ellen when it is safe for her friend to play with it.
Good. Okay. Number 3. Why did Mrs. Johansen tease her brother Henry?
Because he wasn't married.
Yes.
Mama teased her brother Henrik because he never married. She asked him if he would found a wife yet, the one who would keep his house tidy.
Right. She didn't think his house was very clean. Okay. Inferential questions. What does the C represent for Ellen and her family?
I see as freedom.
Okay.
This is prison, hope, and freedom.
Yes. Number 2. Why did Mrs. Johansen ask the girls if they saw anyone while playing near the shore?
She asked because it wasn't safe to speak to anyone.
She warned the girls not to talk to anyone because she didn't want soldiers talking to them and finding anything about them.
Okay. And opinion questions. Number 1, why do you think there was no laughing between Mrs. Johansen and her brother as they talked?
Because they were talking about Ellen and her family and how they can help them be safe.
There was no laughter between Mr. Johansen and Henrik because it was a serious time and the vision was not a vision for fun.
Right. Okay. Chapter 8, there has been a death. Literal questions. How did the girls spend their full day at the farm?
They went to the barn and saw the kittens and the cows and big flowers.
They spent their days at the seashore and looking around the farm.
Okay, number 2. How did Anne-Marie make fun of the German soldiers?
She talked about the Germans relocating Denmark's parts to fit their own shoulders.
She joked about the Germans relocation. They want others to fit their own children.
Okay, number 3. Why was Anne-Marie surprised by Uncle Henrik's announcement that there was to be a funeral?
She was surprised because she did not know of an outbreak.
She was surprised because she didn't hear about the death in her family.
Number 4. What is the old custom when someone dies? What did the family have to do to prepare for the funeral?
The old custom is that the dead persons rest at home and the family be with them before the burial.
Okay.
The custom includes a night of mourning and for the casket to be in the living room.
Yes. Okay. Inferential questions. Why is Annemarie so delighted to have oatmeal, milk, cream, and butter at breakfast?
She was delighted because this was a special treat for her.
She was delighted because it was a special treat for her.
Number 2, what did Uncle Henrik mean when he said tomorrow will be a good day for fishing?
He will be happy in the juice.
He will help the Jews.
And the opinion question, why, when his sister and his nieces were visiting, would Uncle Henrik spend the whole night on his boat?
Uncle Henrik spent the night on his boat so that he could help the Rosen family and several other Jews escape from Denmark.
Yes.
I think he had to prepare the boat to hide the Jewish people.
Okay, very good. Now we want to go to chapter 9 and read. Tran, would you start reading first?
Okay. Now, why are you lying? Annemarie went outside alone after supper. Through the open kitchen window, she could hear Mama and Alan talking as they washed the dishes. Kirsty, she knew, was busy on the floor, playing with the old dolls she had found upstairs, the dolls that had been Mama's once, long ago. The kitten had fled when she tried to dress it, and disappeared. When, as she wandered to the barn where Uncle Henrik was milking Blossom, he was kneeling on the straw cover floor beside the cow, his shoulder pressed against her heavy side, his strong tan hands rhythmically offering her milk into the spotless bucket. The guard upturned the sun alertly poised nearby, watching. Blossom looked up at Annemarie with her big brown eyes and moved her quick mouth like an old woman adjusting false teeth. Annemarie leaned against the ancient, splintery wood
Ancient splintery wood. That means very, very old wood.
of the barnwood and listened to the sharp, rattling sound of the streams of milk as they hit the sides of the bucket. Uncle Henrik glanced over at her smile without pausing in the dream of milking. He didn't say anything. Through the barn windows, the pinkish light of sunset fell in irregular shapes upon the stacked hay. Flakes of dust and straw floated there in the light. Uncle Henrik, Annemarie said suddenly, her voice cold. "You're lying to me, you and Mama both." His strong hands continued deftly pressing like a pulse against the cow. The steady stream of milk still came. He looked at her again, his deep blue eyes kind and questioning. "You are angry," he said. "Yes, Mama has never lied to me before. Never. But I know there is no crutch on pride. Never once. In all the stories I have heard, in all the old pictures I have seen, has there been a crutch on pride?" Uncle Henry sighed. Blossom looked back at him as if to say, "Almost done," and ended the streams of the milk listens and slowed. He tugged at the cow gently but firmly, pulling down the last of the milk. The bucket was half full empty on the top. Finally, he set it aside and washed the cold earth with a clean damp cloth. Then he lifted the bucket to a shelf covered it. He rubbed the coat's neck affectionately. At the last he turned to Annemarie as he wiped his own hands with the cloth. How brave are you, little Emery? He asked suddenly. She was startled and dismayed. It was a question she did not want to be asked. When she asked it of herself, she didn't like her own answer. Not very, she confessed, looking at the floor of the barn. Tall Uncle Henrik knelt before her so that his face was level with hers. Behind him, Blossom lowered her head, crushed a mouthful of hay in her mouth, and drew it in with her tongue. The kitten cocked its head, waiting, still hoping for spilled milk. I think that is not true, Uncle Henry said. I think you're all like I think you are like your mama and like your papa and like Nick. Frightened but determined. And if the time
Determined.
determined
Determined.
determined and if the time came to be brave, I am quite sure you would be very, very brave. But he added, it is much easier to be brave if you do not know everything. And so your mamas do not know everything. Neither do I. We know only what we need to know. Do you understand what I'm saying? He asked, looking into her eyes. Annemarie frowned. She wasn't sure what it bravery meant. She had been very frightened the day, not long ago, who now it seemed far in the past, when the soldier had stopped her on face on the street and asked questions in his raw voice. And she had not known everything then. She had not known that Germans were going to take away the Jews. And so, when the soldier asked, looking at Ellen that day, what is your friend's name? She had been able to answer him, even though she was frightened. If she had known everything, it would not have been so easy to be brave. She began to understand just a little. Yes, she said to Uncle Henrik, I think I understand. You guessed correctly. He told her there is no great upright, and never have been your mama lied to you, and so did I. We did so, he explained, to help you to be brave, because we love you. Will you forgive us for that? Annemarie nodded. She felt older suddenly. And I am not going to tell you anymore, not now, for the same reason. Do you understand? Annemarie nodded again. Suddenly there was a noise outside. Uncle Henry's shoulders stiffened. He rose quickly, went to the window of the barn, stood in the shadows, and looked out. Then he turned back to Annemarie. It is the hearse, he says. It is Great Aunt Bridge, who never was. He
Okay,
smiled.
the hearse, I'll tell you, that's the big car that carries the casket with the person in it that's dead, okay?
Okay.
That's called a hearse.
He smiled brightly. So, my little friend, it is time for a night of mourning to begin. Are you ready? Annemarie took her uncle's hands and he led her from the barn.
Okay, Bautron, would you like to read now?
Okay. The creamy wooden caskets rest on supports in the center of the living room and was surrounded by the fragrant, peppery flowers that Annemarie and Ellen had picked that afternoon. Light candles stood in holders on the table and cast a soft, flickering light. The, the hearse husband and the solemn-faced man who had carried the caskets indoors had gone with it after speaking quietly to Uncle Henrik. Percy had gone to bed reluctantly, explaining that she wanted to stay up with the others, that she was grown up enough that she had never before seen a dead person but in a close-up box, that it wasn't fair. But Mama had the firm and finally Kirsty soaking hat trooped get upstairs with her dolls on the one arm and the kitten on the other. Ellen was silent and had a sad expression. "I'm so sorry your Aunt Rita died," Annemarie heard her say to Mama, who smiled softly and thanked her. Annemarie had listened and said nothing. "So now I, too, am lying," she thought, and to my very best friend I could tell Ellen that it isn't true, that there is no great Aunt Bertie. I could take her aside and whisper the secret to her so that she wouldn't have to feel sad. But she didn't. She understood that she was protecting Ellen by the way her mother had protected her. Although she didn't understand what was happening, or why the casket was there, or who, in truth, was in it. She knew that it was better, safer, for, for Ellen to believe in Great Aunt Bertie, so she said nothing. Other people came as the night sky grew darker. A man and a woman, both of them dressed in dark clothing, the woman carrying a sleeping baby, appeared at the door, and Uncle Henrik escorted them inside. They nodded to Mama and to the girls. They went, following Uncle Henrik, to the living room and sat down quietly. "Friends of Great Aunt Bertie," Mama said quietly in response to Annemarie's questioning look. Annemarie knew that Mama was lying again, and she could see that Mama understood that she knew. They looked at each other for a long time and said nothing. In that moment, with that look, they, they became equals. From the living room came the sound of a sleepy baby wail.
Brief wail, that means cry.
Brief wail. Annemarie glanced through the door and saw the woman open her blouse and begin to nurse the infant, who quieted. Another man arrived, an old man, bearded,
Bearded, that means he had a beard on his face.
bearded. Quietly, he went to the living room and sat down, saying nothing to the others, who only glanced at him. The young woman lifted her baby blanket, covering its face and her own breast. The old man bent his head forward and closed his eyes as if he were praying. His mouth moved silently, forming words that no one could hear. Annemarie stood in the doorway watching the mourners as they sat in the candlelit room. Then she turned back to the kitchen and began to help Ellen and Mama as they prepared food in Copenhagen. She remembered when Leslie died. Friends, friends had come to their apartment every evening. All of them had brought food so that Mama wouldn't need to cook. Why hadn't these people brought food? Why didn't they talk in Copenhagen even though the talk was sad? People had spoken softly to one another and to Mama and Papa. They had talked about lives, remembering happier times. Thinking about it as she sliced cheese in the kitchen, Emily realized that these people had nothing to talk about. They couldn't speak of happier times with Great Aunt Bertie, when there had never been a Great Aunt Bertie at all. Uncle Henrik came into the kitchen. He cleansed at his watch and then at Mama. It's getting late, he said. I should go to the boat. He looked worried. He blew out the candles so that there would be no light at all, and opened the door. He stared beyond the glitter. Gnarled apple gray into the darkness. Good, here they come, he said in a low, relieved voice. Ellen, come with me. Ellen looked questioningly toward her Mama, who nodded. Go with Henrik, she said. Annemarie was still holding the wicket of firm cheese in her hand as Ellen followed Uncle Henrik into the yard. She could hear a sharp, low cry from Ellen, and then the sound of voice speaking softly. In a moment, Uncle Henrik returned. Behind him was Peter Nelson. Tonight Peter went first to Mama and heard her. Then he heard Annemarie and kissed her on the cheek, but he said nothing. There was no playfulness to his affection tonight, just a sense of urgency, of worry. He went immediately to the living room, looked around, and nodded at the silent people there. Ellen was still outside, but in a moment the door opened and she returned, held tightly, like a little girl, her bare legs dangling against her father's chest. Her mother was beside them.
Okay, we'll stop there. And you all can read the next chapter. And I will send you the questions for next week. And you can return them when you're finished. And it was good to see you. And you have a good week at school this week. Okay?
Okay.
Okay. It was good to see you. Bye.
Bye.